Stand by for action.
Thanks for joining me. I'm Dave Milner. I am the Unpleasant Blind Guy, and this show, I'm not going to talk about Scandalanche, the IRS, the NSA, any of the other normal jazz that's going on that all of the other talk show hosts are talking about. I kind of figure people are getting a little tired of that, and I wanted to touch on a few subjects surrounding the Republican Party and this very interesting survey that was taken by the college Republicans and the report that came from it, and sort of react to that, see how we could apply their recommendations and what they found in the younger community to actual conservatives, and talk a little bit about the grand old party. So, let's begin. I think that we're going to have an adult understanding here about what the Republican Party is at this point. And I'm talking about the establishment Republican Party, not the Tea Party movement. These are two different things, and I think we have to come to that realization and finally begin to make a break with the establishment Republican Party. Now, this is going to be a difficult thing to do because it's really very easy and very convenient to have the kind of infrastructure that the actual RNC has. It's very convenient to have the kind of money that they can put behind candidates. But I think that if we look at what the Republicans have done over the years, and particularly since 2010, as regard to their leaders and what they've done concerning actual legislation, we have to realize that the Republican Party is not the party that many of us grew up with, and it's not the party that we thought it was. Now, I know people my age grew up thinking that the Republican Party was the party of Reagan. Some of us, Reagan was the first president we ever voted for, and we really hoped that that was the true image of the Republican Party. Well, if you look at history, I think what you see is that President Reagan was kind of a blip. He was kind of an aberration. The Republican Party, the leaders of the Republican Party anyway, were already beginning to lean left. And just look at President Ford and the kinds of close ties he wanted to maintain with members of the Democratic Party. Now, President Ford did a lot of good things economically. He tried to keep spending under control, which is a good thing. But we have to realize that he was very much into détente. You want to remember that one? Not only with foreign powers, but with the Democrats. President Reagan came in and did everything differently. Our nation was way better for it. And then President Reagan left office, and to take a leaf from Tammy Bruce's notebook, the Bushes came in and began undoing everything that President Reagan did. Now, this goes deeper than that, in a way. It's not just about policy. It's about elitism. And this kind of came out during an interview when people were talking to Barbara Bush about Jeb Bush possibly running in 2016. And Barbara Bush said, well, she didn't think that Jeb Bush should run, and that there were, to quote her, plenty of good families, unquote, from where presidential candidates could be gotten. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that sounds a lot to me like a royalist slash elitist attitude. And you see this in the pretty much do-nothing Republican Congress. Now, they talk a good line. They wave the flag. They obviously love their country. None of that is in dispute whatsoever. But it's become pretty obvious that, for instance, John Boehner is one of the least effective speakers of the House in a long time. He simply will not make the bold steps that are necessary to stop President Obama's Alinskyite agenda. We've seen this time and time and time again. This all goes back to something that I began realizing in the mid-90s, which was that it really appeared to me as if the two major parties were just passing power between each other, almost as if it was a game. And this has continued to the point now where it is my belief that the establishment Republican Party is little more than a false, loyal opposition. In other words, they will say all the right things, check all the right boxes when it comes to conservatism when they're speaking. But when it comes time to act, even when they have a majority in a branch of government, they don't. They allow the left to take the lead, then they complain and talk some more, and don't follow through with legislation because they want to win. That seems to be a common theme, and this is something that I actually had a little conversation with TV's Andy Levy of Red Eye about. We were talking about the survey that I'm going to talk about a little bit from the college Republicans, and he came on the Twitter feed and said, look, you guys can dismiss this survey all you want, but you'd better get used to having Hillary Clinton in the White House in 2016 because the Republicans won't win. My point was then, and it is now, that if the establishment Republicans win and do nothing different than the Democrats would have done in 1992, then we win nothing. The Republicans win nothing, and most importantly, the people of the United States of America win nothing. It's my conclusion that the Tea Party movement has to strike out on its own, support its own candidates wherever they are. No, I'm not talking about forming a third party, because it's my view that part of the problem comes when you have a party structure that elitists can latch onto and begin wielding power through. If candidates can speak directly to the public, and if the public can directly support the candidates with money and volunteerism and that sort of thing, you're going to have something that is very difficult for the leftist opposition to knock down, because it's not just going to be one big target. It's going to be a lot of small targets that are very mobile and very reactive to what these candidates do once they get in office. If we elect someone to Congress, for instance, who runs on a Tea Party platform and they do not perform to that platform, then the next time we can boot them out and get someone else in. That's the quicker way of doing things. Yes, it's less convenient, but we get the results that we want. Now, I know a lot of people have talked about taking the Republican Party back from the elitists, but I think we have to be real here, folks, and decide that that isn't likely to happen. It would be nice if it would, but I just don't see it. I think if we managed to scare the elites who are in charge of the party enough to make them take a Tea Party stance for a little while, as soon as our backs were turned, they'd go right back to doing things their way. That's just the nature of power, and people who have power don't give it up easily, regardless of their affiliation. All right, so let's get to this report from the College Republicans. Now that we've established that the Republican Party is, as Glenn Beck said, the Whigs, let's get to this report and take a look at some of the things, and maybe we can use some of these things for ourselves as conservatives to help us along the way. Now, this was something like about a 95-page report that the College Republicans put out, and its recommendations at the end were pretty much that the Republicans should abandon many of their core principles and begin to act like Democrats. Now, I don't dismiss this survey because it shows the reach of the power structure of the Republican Party. It shows that they reach even into college-age people who are a part of the RNC. And it also shows what a lot of young people are thinking. And it gives us a little bit of direction, I think. Now, one of the first things that I believe we have to realize is that young people are not going to think in the same way that older people do. Young people are not stupid, but they are more gullible. They're more impressed by celebrities. When someone has a cool image or they're portrayed to have a cool image, young people gravitate to that because they want to be cool. They want to be part of the crowd. They do not yet realize that it can be cool of a different kind to stand on your own and stand for what's right. So let's look at this report. All right, and now these are the problems that these young people say that the Republicans have, and I can kind of translate these a bit into problems that conservatives have, problems as seen by young people that they have interviewed for their report. Now, the first thing is gay marriage. This goes into the closed-minded meme. If you're not for gay marriage, you're obviously a hater, and you're a terrible person, and no one should support you at all. Now, this is something that I felt for a while, which is, let's leave the entire issue of marriage to those who want to be married. Get the government the hell out of marriage altogether. There was a time when government did, in a way, need to be a part of marriage because of statistics and things of that nature. But that's over with now. We've got plenty of people. We've got plenty of couples. We've got plenty of people having babies. And we don't need to have that kind of government oversight anymore. Let's get the government the heck out of marriage. That way people can decide whether or not they want to be married, and they're not going to have government looking down their necks. That shouldn't be something that conservatives should be for anyway. And I'm sorry that if that offends some of my social conservative friends, but hey, this show is not called The Unpleasant Blind Guy for nothing. All right, the next one. Now, the perception of the Republican Party's economic stance. Okay. As the college Republicans say, we've become the party that pats you on your back when you make it, but doesn't offer you a hand up to help you get there. Now, that can be translated to conservatives in pretty much the same way. All right? And we have to react to these things as conservatives and find things that we can say to young people about them, as with the gay marriage thing. Just get government out of marriage. Now, when it comes to the economic stance, we're going to have to get to one place in our heads, and this is real. we're going to have to understand that it is not cool, or it does not sound cool, to tell young people that they can make it if they work hard. It sounds way cooler to tell young people, we're going to hand you this free money because we're nice guys. That just sounds way cooler. And whether you're a Rush Limbaugh fan or not, he did have a point at the end of the 2012 election when he said that you can't compete with Santa Claus. And you can't. The one defense that we have in cases like this is that we can tell young people, now this part is not kid-friendly, so cover your kids' ears for a second. We can tell young people, we're not going to bullshit you. Okay, you can uncover your kids' ears now. We're going to tell the kids the truth. And the truth is that if they work hard in a country that has a decent business environment, they can do well. And they can provide not only for themselves, but they can make jobs for others that are meaningful and make a better standard of living for everyone. Yes, it's the long way around to get it done, but it's also what's real. If we tell people that, if we tell young people that, and if we're honest about it, no, it won't resonate with a lot of them, and I think we have to face that. But it will resonate with some, and we will keep our souls as conservatives, and I think that's very important. Now, on Hispanics, all right, we've heard this before. Latino voters think that Republicans don't care about them. And that also goes to conservatives. No, we don't particularly care to grant a blanket amnesty to people who came in and broke our laws to be here and now want all of the benefits of citizenship without having to go through what actual real immigrants went through to get it. We don't believe people should be able to cut in line. We don't believe people should be rewarded for breaking the law. Again, that's real. It has nothing to do with what the skin color of the individuals is. No one cares about that. That's something else we have to tell young people. That we just plain don't care about other people's race. The Democrats care about that because they can exploit it. They're going to, cover your kids' ears, bullshit young people using race. Uncover your kids' ears. They're going to make the case that these races have to be protected and everything from the evil conservative white man. When the fact of the matter is that their policies could not be more racist because they assume that people who are brown or black or anything that's non-white actually are so much less than that they have to be supported by free giveaway programs that frankly are going to have the money for them run out eventually anyway. Now, the next one. The big reason for the image problem. All right. It says, and I'm quoting here, the outrageous statements made by arrogant Republican voices. Now, that is us. That's members of the Tea Party movement. That's everybody that's not John McCain. That's everybody that's not Lindsey Graham. That's everybody that says we don't want to compromise with people who want to destroy our country. That's everybody who says that we feel as deeply and as strongly about our beliefs as the left do about theirs. And these voices, according to the Republican National Committee and the college Republicans, because let's remember, it's all from the RNC, baby. These voices are the extremists. The ones, remember the ones that President Obama said that people should ignore, young people should ignore? Yeah, same ones. And isn't it interesting that this is the perception that the college Republicans are saying is coming out of young people that they have surveyed? By the way, these people were aged 18 to 29. Now, another part of this report shows what the young people that they Brigade disagreed with the Republican Party on, and these are rather interesting. The first one is GOP economic policies are to blame for the recession. Now, this, of course, is right out of the DNC playbook. In other words, propaganda works, especially when it comes to impressionable young people. Older people tend to be a little bit more skeptical. We tend to look for a reason someone is saying something to us. Younger people, whether they admit it or not, tend to look towards authority. And all too often that authority can be someone like Jon Stewart or or some actor or someone else in the media. And they take these perceptions from them, and this propaganda becomes real in their minds. And what we have to do to counter that is to be real. Yes, crony capitalism did have something to do with the recession, but the housing crisis also had something to do with it, and that was caused by Democrats. Now the next one. Okay, lower taxes will not create jobs. This, of course, as every conservative knows, is a lie. We have to tell young people that even if you took away all of the rich people's money, every cent, and turned them all into poor people, no more rich people, that money would be gone in a few years. Taking away money from rich people is not going to resolve the problems. Now, that doesn't feel cool, but it's real. And again, we have to tell young people that we're going to be real with them, and we have to follow through, by the way. Now, the next one. End the attacks on women's reproductive health. Now, that's a very fascinating one because, once again, that's right out of the DNC playbook. And it plays into what social conservatives talk about with abortion and things of that nature. Now, there are a lot of different feelings that go along here. Perceptions and opinions between social conservatives, economic conservatives, libertarians, people like that. My view is, don't make me pay for your fun. Now, this comes from Greg Gutfeld of Red Eye fame. I think you can say to young people, do what you want to do, but don't expect me to pay for it. And we can point to what happened with Gosnell and say, no, this is not what happens when abortion is illegal. This is what happens when it's legal and when a culture of death is allowed to take over our medical infrastructure. All right, now the next one says expand universal health care coverage. Well, I dismissed that one. That's been done, and even people on the left are starting to see that was a suck decision to make. And what we as conservatives can tell young people is there's only one way to resolve that, and that is to take that entire infrastructure down and put up something that's better, that will serve all of the people better, and will not just pump up insurance companies, create more crony capitalism, and provide suck health care for the poor. Health care that, by the way, the leaders of neither one of the major parties are going to be forced to partake of. The next one, cut the defense budget first. That, once again, this is right out of some professor's mouth. Make love, not war. More babies, fewer bullets. Well, maybe not more babies, but certainly fewer bullets. It's standard leftist fare, and we have to say to kids that we have to be prepared to defend ourselves, because not everyone in this world is a good person. And that expands to world leaders. There are people who simply are going to take whatever others have when they have a chance to do that, because they can. That's real. It's not feel good, but it is real. It's honest. And that's where conservatives have to go. Now, the next one says Democrats are more responsive to student loans. Well, again, there's the Santa Claus factor. I mean, it really sounds great to say to kids, hey, we're going to give you money. It does not sound cool to say to kids, there's not enough money. We can't just keep on doling out money, because at the end, that money is going to run out, or if you keep on printing money, it's not going to be worth anything. That doesn't sound cool. So conservatives may have to take the hit on that one, because if Democrats are pushing more student loans, conservatives are just going to have to say to the kids, this is not real, this will not last. And the next one, climate change is real. Now, this is something else that kids on college campuses get pumped into their brains all of the time. This pseudo-science of climate change. And again, as with many of these other things, in fact, all of them, conservatives have to go on the offensive. We can't be defensive. We have to go on the offensive and say that, yes, climate change is real. It's called weather. And no proposed action, including carbon capture, is going to do very much at all to resolve any overwarming of the globe. It's just not going to help. It's going to have a negligible effect, if any at all, and we have to be real about that. Now, the next one. Bush's wars blew up the deficit. This goes along with the other Republican policies, created the recession, blah, 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 blah. Okay, now, it is true that the wars after the war on terror has blown up the deficit. That's true. But what's also blown up the deficit has been the housing crisis. What's also blown up the deficit, and even more so, has been out-of-control entitlement programs. We have to go on the offensive about this one and tell young people, again, these programs that cost all of this money that is eventually going to wear out are what have really blown up the deficit. They've blown it up for the young people growing up now, for their kids, and for their grandkids. We have to stay aggressive. And the last one here in this little list is marriage equality for all. Well, you know my opinions about those. Okay, so that's that report, except for these few little sniglets here. And this has to do with the overall perception of the Republican Party. And I think this, again, can be translated to conservatives. And I think, again, we can combat this. They're seen as brutal, closed-minded, racist, rigid, old-fashioned. All right, well, let's take these. Let's take these and get aggressive with them and go on the offense towards the left. And I don't just talk about, when I say the left now, I'm not just talking about the Democrats. I'm also talking about the establishment Republican Party. Remember, I think the Republican Party are pretty much done. When Glenn Beck called them the Whigs, I think he was quite right. Brutal fits into this meme that the Republicans are hard-nosed. And I would say that it is the left who are hard-nosed if they want to kill babies and if they want to target people with the IRS who disagree with them, and if they want to blow up bridges if things are going on in the business community that they don't like. I'd call that fairly brutal. Closed-minded? Listen to Bill Maher recently. Listen to Jon Stewart. Listen to any of these leftist people. They are more closed-minded in their views than anyone that I've heard on the right. And that goes into rigid. I have never heard anyone on the left make a move in any way to compromise on any one of the major issues that they're promoting or any of the major issues that they're against. That's what I call rigidity. Now, racist, I've already covered that. Fact is, the left want to use people who are of different races from whites as a voting bloc, and that's it. The rest of the time, they want them to sit down and shut up and take the free stuff that's eventually going to go away, and they don't have the faith in them that they can go out and make successes of themselves. In fact, if they do make successes of themselves outside of popular music or something, they're usually called sellouts or something like that. So the racist thing, poof, out the window. Now, about the only thing that I can see in here that is a bit true, in my opinion, is the old-fashioned argument. You know, calling the Republican Party, calling itself the Grand Old Party. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that sounds like it's 1898 and everybody's wearing those stupid flat straw hats and sitting around drinking country time lemonade, listening to a band concert. Now, none of that's necessarily a bad thing, but it's not urban. It's not 2013. And when you're talking to young people, they don't care about old stuff because they're not old. Remember, young people don't think like older people because they're young people. If conservatives want to do anything to combat this image, I do have a few suggestions. First one is lose the jackets and ties. I really have a problem when I see someone on our side wearing a jacket and tie on any of these TV programs or things like that. It just makes me feel deep down inside that someone is going to try and hand me a line of crap. I just don't feel like I can, on an elemental level, really trust these people. And people in both the major parties do it. But as conservatives, we have to get rid of that notion. We have to get rid of that whole image. Most of us don't wear jackets and ties. It's not a business meeting when you're talking to people about your aspirations for the country. And yes, you can be taken seriously if you just wear a nice dress shirt. All right? There's that one. Now, music and celebrities. It's all superficial. We all know it. But young people love this stuff. It's really great to them. They think it's fantastic. So what do you do? Because not a lot of people in the entertainment industry want to go over to the Tea Party movement and do stuff for them and be a part of that. Because usually they're afraid that they'll lose their leftist following if they do this or something like that. So they don't want to lend a hand. Same with movie stars and people like that. Oh, by the way, if you're talking to young people and they say, well, movie stars are for these leftist causes, hit them with this. Well, don't hit them with it, but tell them this. All right? Movie stars make a living basically by lying, by pretending to be someone else. So can you really expect them to tell the truth about this? And even if they are, how do you know they're telling the truth? That's just a perception I have. Again. Now, when it comes to music, to quote-unquote conservative bands and things like that, I don't see a thing in the world wrong with Tea Party events where bands get together, bands of people who have Tea Party beliefs and things of that nature. And getting together and having basically battles of the bands. Because, yes, it's great if you have a band that is made up of conservative people and will play conservative venues. That's fantastic. But, as Andrew Wilkow says, if it's a suck band, it's not going to work. Same with filmmakers. All right? It's great if you want to go out there and make films with a conservative message, but they have to be films that people want to see first. All right. I think we've just about beaten this subject to death. And I hope that I've given some pointers that might help out in some of the Tea Party groups out there and things like that. We have to be aggressive, not defensive. We can't let the left continue to take the high ground on these issues. I mean, even if we lose with young people, we have to let them understand that we are real and the left is not. And while that won't get us most of the young vote, that will get us some of the young vote, and there will be others who will remember. When you think about commentators like Tammy Bruce and Dana Lash, you find that that can be an asset because both of them started out in their young lives as being Democrats, as being liberals. And they came to the conservative realizations over the years. And much of that had to do with the messaging that got through to them. So, my advice to everyone out there is find a candidate in your state that you like and support them. Send money to the RNC? Nah, I wouldn't. Don't intend to. I don't see the Republican National Committee changing. I don't see the leadership of the establishment Republican Party changing. So the Tea Party movement is going to have to go out on its own and do its own thing. And that's a good thing. Now, before I get into my Awesome American this week, I have a little bit of housekeeping to do. Donya Lane pointed out that I mentioned the concept of free speech in my last show as a right guaranteed to us in our Constitution. Philosophically, that is slightly incorrect. Okay, the First Amendment and almost everything outlined in our charter documents was written as a limitation of our government, not a right granted. Now, I agree with that. It's a common mistake that I made, and Donya called me on it, and I have to come out and say that that's true. I made that mistake, and I shouldn't have. All right. And I want to thank Donya for catching that and for calling me out on it, because I want to be real and make sure that these things are said correctly, because I do believe them. And want to promote the show, actually 2 shows, or 3, isn't it? Listen, these are people, again, spoke about them when I did my first show, and I'm going to talk about them again because they're all great. The Small G Gay Report with Small G Gay, which is on weeknights at 11 p.m. Eastern. This is a very smart commentary from a guy who really looks into his stories from different and oblique angles on almost a daily basis and has some really good analysis that I think would be a benefit for people to have. Then there's Freedom Radio with Sergeant Tim Sumner. That comes on Wednesdays on Blog Talk Radio. Small G Gay Report is also on Blog Talk Radio. Also on Blog Talk Radio is The Shrew. That's hosted by Anna B. and Pat Carfagno. That comes on at 8 p.m. on Fridays. All 3 of these are good shows. Sergeant Tim has some incredible guests, as good as anything you're going to hear from any of the big-time radio show hosts out there. How the heck Sergeant Tim gets these guests, I don't know, but he does. And It really is good. He also has some good analysis. And if you just want to hear some good folks talking about issues of the day from a conservative standpoint, The Shrew is a great show. With Anna B and Pat Carfagno, they do a fabulous job, and I think you'd be well served to listen to them. All right, now my awesome American for this week is a fella named Jeremiah Anthony, who founded West High Bros, which is a Twitter account that combats cyberbullying by complimenting fellow students, thereby boosting their spirit. Now, what that basically means is that they look at the Twitter account, and the people who run the account, instead of sharpening their wits on everybody else, which other people do, and I include myself in that, I'm every bit as guilty as that, actually send complimentary things to their fellow students. And this isn't just for the jocks or the motorheads or the sportos or people like that. This is for everyone in this kid's high school. I think it's a very cool thing to do. It's something that this young man has thought of to do on his own, and I think that it points up the generosity of the American people, even in spirit. I don't give a damn what you think about the bullying issue. Don't get me started on that. I'm not going to do a show about it now, or even a part of it. But we're just going to lay that aside for now. I think it's a great idea that young people are actually out there contributing to some civility on the net, instead of just joining in the big dogfight that seems to be going on constantly. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air to see. All right. I want to thank everyone for listening. Really appreciate all of you guys. If you have questions or comments, please contact me via Twitter at UBGContact, and I will be happy to try and answer any questions of yours or whatever. And here's hoping that you have a great week. I'm recording this show early, doing it on Tuesday the 11th, because I have other things going on the rest of the week. So I hope you have a great rest of the week, and I hope you have a good weekend. Thank you, and may your God go with you. Bye-bye.